Welcome back to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV. Today, we're tackling the next stage of Alexander, the third room, the Arm of the Father. At this point, we're going to be getting back into dealing more with bosses proper, as opposed to the sheer number of trash mobs that we ran into previously. Now, from Alexander 3, your rewards to potentially choose from are the lens, the crank, and the spring, of which, reminder, these can be turned in for gear once you collect enough of them right here in Idleshire. Now, the lens actually goes to the head, which you need 2 pieces for. The crank goes to the hands, which you need 2 pieces for. And the spring goes to the legs, which you need 4 pieces for. And man, that cube is quick. I'm not used to this. Now, normally I go into Alexander 2 if I just want to knock out an Alexander real quick. As far as boss fights go, I think I actually enjoy Alexander 3 the most. It's not difficult, but it's still interesting. And let me tell you, the music in this thing, it's the same music that's been in all of these, but holy crap, we gotta crank that down and hear that crap. So at the very beginning, you'll notice there's a little bit of electricity on the floor up ahead. Don't stand in it. You probably won't be near it long enough to stand in it anyway. You hang a left, go up the stairs where you'll occasionally get a couple AoEs dropped on you. Just avoid them and keep running. Those are just by the environment, no particular enemy doing them. But then at the top, you'll find a fair number of these, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Echiosaurus? I don't know. They'll drop a couple little AoEs down, I think, but for the most part, they don't do much. Just wrap them all together, there's a lot of them, and just AoE the crap out of them. Honestly, I don't even know if those AoE... I don't even know if they do any AoEs. I think that's just purely the environment. But then at the end of the whole mess, you'll see the Clay Claw, which you'll occasionally grab alongside all of the ads. This guy's a bigger, meatier guy, but he still doesn't really do much that you haven't seen these Scorpion-type enemies do already. Of note, though, is standing in that goo will put a slow effect on you. As a DPS anyway, not that that matters much. We'll do Tail Screw. I'm pretty sure it can be stunned. At least it can be stunned on most other of these guys. But for the most part, he's not really that big a deal. As you run down the stairs, you'll see a bunch of rubble in front of you, so you have to hop off the edge to continue on your way down. We're joined by Gandalf the White, so we're sure to win. You can actually go around this one, I feel, but shorter way is simply to come down the stairs again. Somebody's far enough ahead to have actually triggered the boss fight, but we've got to run just a little bit ahead until we find these cool-looking rollers that'll slide us down to the boss. The Living Liquid. The Living Liquid actually has 3 different forms, initially, and each one of these forms has a different set of attacks. So at the very beginning, when you're fighting him, he has, for one, a frontal cleave. So that's something the tanks and healers will want to watch out. He also has some raid-wide AoE damage called Splash. He has a couple very thin conals, and I've actually found it difficult to know. It's random where they're aiming, but I've actually found sometimes it's hard to tell whether or not I'm standing in one or not. That's almost it for his first phase, or for his first form. He also has a move called Sluice, which puts a marker over 4 people's heads. Now, they didn't do a very good job of getting out of the way of those, but you should take that marker and run far away just to make sure you don't hit anybody with it. Very shortly after Sluice goes off, a regular red circle AoE will hit, which will then hit just before Sluis's actual hits. But after an amount of damage, or an amount of time, I think time, actually, he changes form into his hand form. Now here he has a very powerful frontal cleave, but it can be distributed amongst everybody hit, so typically this guy will be pointed at the party. He also has a move called Wash Away, which will knock you back in a random direction. So I actually find I want to stand as close to the center of the arena as possible when he does that, so I don't get knocked into the electricity around the edge. Now, other than the frontal cleave and that knockback, there's not a lot his hand form does, though after a brief amount of time he will split into two smaller hands. Each one has half the health that the single hand had. These, of course, still have their frontal cleaves, so the off-tank will typically grab the one that the main tank doesn't already have, and those two will be pointed both away from each other and away from the party. It's kind of nice to have them still together, though, so you can hit them both with AoEs, but to be honest, they're not doing much here. They are, however, putting a debuff on the tanks, so you don't want that to go on for too long. After an amount of time still, or HP, I'm not sure, he'll change into his third form, a Tornado. There's not a lot going on in the Tornado phase, at least at first. He'll put some AoE damage out every now and then, but mostly you just have these gear lubricants running out and about that you want to make sure to kill as fast as possible. You see that tether going out. The tether means whoever that tether is connected to is about to get hit by a very powerful AoE. The tanks typically will want to intersect that tether and haul it somewhere so they get hit far from the rest of the party. Do pay attention to the piston lubricant here. The bigger guy does have more HP. Also, when you get tethered by that tether, make sure to stand still so the tank isn't chasing you trying to get the thing off. Now, the final attack that the Living Liquid will do in this phase is a polarity attack. I forget what it's actually called, but you'll see a positive symbol and a negative symbol, or a positive or a negative symbol connected over two people's heads, just like that there, and they'll be connected by a rather long tether. This is where you remember your high school science class. Positives attract, opposites repel. No, opposites attract. Likes repel. So, opposites attract. So if you see you have a negative, the other person has a positive, you actually want to get very far away from each other, so when you're pulled together, you're not like slamming into each other. I think it adds some extra debuffs onto you. Alternatively, if you have the same likes repel, so you want to get as close to each other as possible and near the center of the arena. Don't stand in the AoE right around the boss, though. That crap hurts. Because when it goes off, you'll get blown away from each other, and you don't want to get blown into the electricity around the outside edge of the arena. Now back to Sluis. I'm taking this, so I can run it out here. You see the AoEs drop, then I get hit by Sluis, so just a lot of stuff going on at once. Needless to say, after the Tornado phase, the guy goes back to his original humanoid form, and the cycle repeats. He's just going to keep doing this until you wear his HP down far enough. Going to be changing back to the hand form here, so we're going to be continuing on with that. Now, of note, every one of the ads that spawned that was slowly moving towards the outside of the arena, if it gets out there, it puts a damage up buff on the boss himself, or something similar, at least. So if you don't get that on him, if you don't kill all of those ads, the boss is going to be doing a lot more damage. Honest to goodness, you could probably get away with maybe one. I don't know, I don't have much experience with them actually not getting killed, but one, maybe two, I feel would be doable, but even two, he's just going to be hitting so hard. But that's it for the first phase of the fight, anyway. Because as I mentioned before, we're simply cycling through the various mechanics again. Now, once you get his HP down far enough, about 35%, he'll change back into his human form, and this is going to be the final phase of the fight. No more form changes from here. He starts with an attack called Cascade, which actually puts 3 very large AoEs around the outside edge of the arena. And from here on out, the fight is effectively going to be a combination of all the mechanics we've seen thus far. We're still getting Sluice put on, so people are going to have to run off to not get everybody hit by that, as well as the red AoEs. We've got Polarity, so opposites attract, so I'm running far away so we get pulled together. Continue whooping on him. Of note, the boss actually retains his frontal cleave. However, the cleave actually additionally now has the debuff that it puts on the tank. And if memory serves, it's usually 3 to 4 of the debuffs put on one tank before that tank is just taking so much damage that you have to tank swap. So yes, there is actually a tank swap mechanic in this fight, so off tank, don't let your guard down so easily. But Sluice going off again, AoE's going off again, still got the little random conals going out. Again, this fight is effectively everything that we've seen thus far. You're not really seeing anything new, you're just seeing it all at once. Typically, I see him just held in the center of the arena. I'm not sure why they're holding him off to the side like that. But that's about it for the fight, though. Keep hammering on him, and eventually things will draw to a close. You see those two, opposites attract, so they're running far away from each other. These will get pulled together. Just a few more percentages, and he should be whittled down. As long as everybody stays on their guard, this fight isn't terribly difficult. You can still see things wreck pretty awkwardly from time to time. But that has been... There's your rewards, as I mentioned before. From this one, you can either get a lens, a crank, or a spring for the head, hands, or legs of the Gordian gear set, which is item level 190, I think. But that has been Alexander 3, the Arm of the Father. Until next time, everyone, there's only one phase of Alexander remaining.